Hello, my favorite people. You're my favorite because you're listening to my podcast, and I really appreciate that because this is a place where I say things and you listen, which is amazing. Love it. I'm so appreciative. Let's all take a moment to feel that appreciation, shall we? Feel that? That's my appreciation for you. Um, yeah, great. I like to believe that you're over there on the other end, uh, wanting to hear the things that are said here. And so maybe in that way, you summoned this incredible guest that I have today. Her name's Adella. I met her in Raven Royce's voice codes. Remember Raven Royce? We did a podcast episode together where we talked about voice codes. Anyways, so Adela, she's one of these young, wise, very self aware, inspiring little people. You know, I love a good young person with an old soul. Love them. So here's another. And big thank you to Raven for creating the environment that brought together just a bunch of incredible people. And I hope to have more of them on my podcast. Actually, I'm going to have one named Carlos on Tuesday. So look forward to that because he's a fucking treat. And yes, so anyways, Adela and I, we kind of share this bond over our like very strong desire to express ourselves in a big way while also feeling a little bit restricted and unable to do so. So here's us having a conversation for a long duration of time, expressing ourselves because we got stuff to say. And I think you'll enjoy it. And I hope you do. And thank you for being here and thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoy. And I love you so much. Without further ado, Adela. All right. So, first of all, Adela, thank you. Um, I would just before we hopped on, I watched your share for the first day of voice codes, just because I wanted to remember. I was gonna ask you like why you joined, and then I thought I'll just look and review like what it was that you said, and then I was reminded that when you shared your like reason for why you wanted to join voice codes, I remember I was like, oh, like that could be me talking, like because you're like, I'm doing it because I'm so afraid to do it. And I was like, oh. And and then you said also that you experienced like the feeling of your expression like being suppressed, even though you have like this really strong desire. You said that you always have so much to say, but often don't feel like you can express it because you're not sure if it's going to be received well, or um or if it wants to be heard, and just all of those things. I was like, same, like I totally feel that. So, oh geez. So, oh my gosh, I'm just like bumping everything right now. So nervous energy.
Really got to shake it out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So go on.
I was just gonna say that first day of voice codes, I also felt like kind of an immediate connection to you. Before you had even spoken, I just kind of like your energy on the screen, it just like felt like I just already felt like I was resonating with it. Like you just had like a little bit of like a nervous energy that I was like picking up and I was like, oh, like I feel her, I feel her. And then when because after I had shared, I was just like all shaky. And then Raven told me to do the voice or the wolf howl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then you started your share with doing the wolf howl, and I was like, oh my goodness, yes,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm so glad we just learned that that's a thing because oh man. yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild just how much can be carried in the body when I don't know. And yeah, I'm when I try to think about like how to describe what voice codes is, I have a really difficult time to even like
Yeah.
explain it. Because the people at work, they were like, I said that I was doing this like voice program. They're like, oh, so is it like a singing program? I'm like, I mean, yes and
Sort
no,
of.
because it's also so much more than that. I
Hmm.
don't even know if you would want to try to like explain what it is that we're doing there.
Yeah, it is very difficult. I've run into the same problem with some of my friends. I start with just like, well, it's singing, speaking, scribing.
Yeah.
Um, and it feels almost like singing is kind of the last piece of it, and the piece that I don't even know if I'll personally even touch on too deeply in this round. Like I love to sing, but I feel that I have so much in my speaking voice and in my writing voice to harness before I can like focus on attuning my my
Mm-hmm.
singing voice.
Same. When the last time right before we did our call and Raven left a voice note and she said, can't wait to see you guys in circle today. And I thought I heard song circle. And when I like I was like song circle immediately. I'm like my palms are sweating. Like I'm not ready for
Yeah.
this at all. But
Yeah,
maybe we'll do
song
it in like
circle.
a
You
group
know,
thing.
sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I'm just like hoping that when it comes to singing that I I can't imagine they're gonna like have if we don't feel comfortable to do it, we won't have to do it, but maybe there'll be like a group song circle thing where I don't know,
Yeah.
everybody turns their mic on or something and it just gets really connected. But
Yeah. Honestly, after that first session, or yeah, coming into the second one, I already felt so much more comfortable just being familiar with the faces and kind of the energy of the group. Um,
geez, sorry, don't mind me. Carry
yeah,
on.
no problem. Um, but yeah, it feels like it's just such a deeply supportive little community. And the WhatsApp, it's always popping off. So much love there. And I feel
Mhm.
like of all places, it's where I will feel comfortable singing or really sharing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that to me is like one of those little synchronistic, like happy accidents that I like to take credit that I like manifested somehow to even be involved in such a thing.
Yes.
Because for like years since I've met Raven, like I've kind of followed her on Instagram and like watched her, you know, her life and every time that I would see her, like, she's always like with just groups of like artistic, creative, expressive, like confident, amazing people. And I was like, where are you finding all these people? And then after we had kind of talked about that in her podcast, and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh my God, I'm one of the people.
You're
Like,
one of them.
I'm like, is this a mistake? Like, that's, and then yeah, that feeling of just imposter syndrome. I'm like, I asked for this, and like, all these people are amazing, but like, how did I sneak in here? I feel like such a like, I don't know.
No,
So
totally. I'm also
that,
like fighting the imposter syndrome being here right now. Cause like I'm like I love listening to podcasts, but I always think if you're gonna be on a podcast, you have to have your life figured out and some serious wisdom to share. And I'm like, I'm only 21. What do I know? What do people have to learn from me? But maybe some things. Maybe some
yeah,
things.
you can learn from anybody. I thought about it so many times today how you're only 21 because I just keep being surprised by it just because the way that you, I don't know, like present to me, like it seems like, and you even said in your first share, like that one of the reasons why you want to learn to harness your voice and stuff is so that you can share your wisdom. So it's like you're aware that you've lived some life and learned some things along the way and that you do have things to offer. And that's really cool for someone who's so young to actually have that like sureness in what like the value that you have from your experience. And I believe it, I'm like, yes, I want to know like more,
Thank you.
so
Yeah.
mm, so we talked about a little bit about discussing like some of the blessings that you've found through the like COVID times.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
maybe that would be like a fun place to start.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay, wait, before even we start talking about that, I also want to say thank you for having me here today. Um,
My
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it, and it's very exciting for me. And um, when I like after that first call and I was looking at the modules and I saw, I think Raven had mentioned in the call that you had the podcast, but like it didn't really compute like who you were, whatever. And then I saw it in the module podcast with Lataya, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's literally amazing and so deeply inspiring to me. Um, and so yeah, I just think it's so great that you started this, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. But yeah, COVID. Wow, it's been like really good for me. Mostly. I mean, obviously extremely difficult in a lot of ways, but way more positives have come from it for me than negatives. It kind of started. So I was a freshman in college. Um, I was in the second semester of my freshman year when it all happened. I was actually home for spring break and had to like fly back to DC. And yeah, I go to school in DC, and pack up all my stuff really quick, come home, and at the very beginning of, I think it was literally still March, I think, me and my boyfriend at the time broke up, and it was like first love, beautiful, beautiful relationship that I'm very grateful for. Really good friend, but it was just time. It was just time, and we wanted to try out just being independent and seeing what we could learn from that. And so that was a big deal, and that kind of catalyzed the whole COVID experience for me, because leaving that relationship just really made me confront like my so many of my issues and my real extreme lack of self-love and ability to comfort myself, and um yeah, just like be my own friend, let alone best friend. And so I kind of just went on this journey with myself of just kind of moving on from a really unhealthy relationship with food, and letting that open the doors to just like getting to know myself in this new way and exploring new small passions. Like I realized I really like to paint. I'm all over my room. I'm looking around because I painted these little mushrooms like all on the baseboard of my room, and that was
Cool.
like it's so cool, and I love it. And that was kind of like a first moment of like, oh, like I like to do art and I like to create and I'm good at that. And yeah, just finding these new little parts of myself. And in this time also, I was having some mushroom experiences for the first time, which were also very formative and propelling me into this deep relationship with the earth, and with just realizing how profound our connection is, and that it's been here the whole time and I didn't even know. Um, and so yeah, that was like the COVID summer, very beginning, and that was just a big deal. And I kind of felt like it was the very first moment of coming into myself, and like I realized like my style changed, and I like started wearing funky jewelry and just like being more like feeling more like myself. And that was
Mm.
kind of the first wave. Um, and there's there's so many layers of how COVID, like now it's just life, honestly. It's like how has life been the last couple of years? Um, but then just like to briefly talk about the next year, which was my sophomore year of college, totally online. But I went back to DC and I was living in an apartment with a really good friend of mine and someone who I didn't know that well at the time. And that was last year, very intense. It was being in DC during the election, and I mean, being like in any city during COVID. I'm from like LA, but not in the city at all. So to be living in an apartment where I can't see grass out my window.
Oh,
I have no
nice.
balcony. Like I hit the concrete immediately when I step outside, and it's just like bustle all the time. Was really really intense for me. And um, being in school always is difficult for me to be in a good balance of my academics, my work, my social life, and taking care of myself. Like I really tend to put my needs last, and my schoolwork first. I get like it's something I'm working on, but being less attached to my grades and my
Mhm.
performance in school. Um, so yeah, I really just like absorb myself in school and feel like I lose myself. And so that was happening. That happened severely last year, heightened by COVID and the tiny apartment in the city and just the like cold feeling of DC. DC is like a scary place, especially last year during the election. It was like everything was boarded up, and for like a couple weeks there were like army trucks roaming the streets, and you couldn't go to the pretty part of the city with like the monuments and stuff. And yeah, so that was like a really they kind of I came down so hard from the summer where I was just like on this high of like, oh my God, life is beautiful, to like, whoa, life is hard. And so that contrast was also kind of like a big moment for me. And yeah, I don't even know where I'm going, but that was an intense time. More has even come since then, but um
Mhm.
how yeah.
What do you study, first of all?
I'm studying international relate well, okay, the full title of my major is um, international relations in Latin America, focusing in global inequality and development. And I have a minor in education. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So tell me more about that because I'm just not really sure, like.
Yeah, I know it's pretty random. It's like very DC and very American. American is the school I go to, American University, which is an awful name. I hate it. Like wearing a sweatshirt. Like my when I decided to go there, my mom was like, "You cannot buy a sweatshirt that just says American. Like it has to say AU or American University." I was like, "Valid."
Mhm.
um, so yeah, it's a lot of learning about kind of how the UN works and how different international organizations function, and how trade works and international economics, and just like broadly that's what it's about. And
What
my focus,
Yeah,
sorry.
like what's your, oh my God, this light. What's your like personal interest in that?
Yeah, so well, I wouldn't say, well, my focus, my like major focus, I don't know if I would say it's really my personal interest. It's kind of just where I ended up, and now I feel not like I love it. But so it's global inequality and development. So it's studying basically different methods of development and how different development organizations carry out development projects. And kind of like the consensus that I've gotten from 3 years of that is like development is a big issue and it creates more problems than it solves, and we don't really know what to do about it. So it's a very disheartening thing to learn about. Um, but and this year I was actually focusing a lot in religion, in like religion and security, and how that relates to development. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff mixed in with what I'm learning. And a lot of my professors are just really, really great people, very intelligent. And I like the academic setting for the most part. Like I enjoy it. I like writing papers and stuff. But at the same time, this year especially, I was back in person. I have been hit with this feeling of just like cannot make myself care about school because it just doesn't feel important. Specifically in this one religion class that I was in, we were taught like I actually love learning about religion. I think it's fascinating. But we were talking about like just we would talk about such specific theories, like these just very detailed, nuanced, niche theories that like scholars of very niche categories have come up with. And we'd like look at two theories that are almost exactly the same and like pick out their differences.
Mhm.
And it felt like such a waste of time. And it felt like we're up in the ivory tower just sipping our tea, like accomplishing nothing and calling it scholarship. And I think that's kind of just like a lot, like what a lot of college feels like to me. And it just feels like ingenuine a lot of the time and not how I really want to be spending my time. But at the same time, I mean, I'm grateful for my education for sure.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't know that you feel that way unless you went through it and had that experience. Um,
Exactly.
uh, so has it, okay, so when you started to feel like it's impossible to be interested in what you were studying or in school, was that feeling like accompanied by a desire to move in a different direction, or was it just like you just knew you didn't really want to do that so much?
Like, yes. I I knew I mean, I've thought about transferring since my freshman year, to be honest, because I just my school environment, I mean, DC, as I said, is just like not my city, and my school doesn't attract the kind of people that I vibe with, people like at all. I've really struggled finding friends. Um, but it's but yeah, so I've thought about transferring a lot, but um at this point it's kind of just I'm so deep. I might as well just finish, and I honestly do know a lot about what I've learned, and might as well kind of like wrap it up here. But definitely has made me. I think I want to go to grad school at some point and study something that really feels more true to me.
Mm.
But it's made me think that that probably won't happen for a while, and then I'm going to need a break from school. And that I'm definitely going to give my children the option of not going to college if they want to. And if they do want
Mm.
to, I think I'm going to make them go to college in Europe because it's so cheap. And here, college is so expensive. And that's another piece of it that feels just like wrong to be paying so much money to be kind of not even really sure what I'm learning or what the point of what I'm learning is.
Yeah, that always like deterred me from trying because I would speak to so many people who went to and studied for like, I don't know, 4 years or something. And they're like, man, then I realized I didn't really want to do it. But I'm like, you just spend like tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to like realize that that's not what you want to do. And I have not locked in the money codes yet in my life. So I'm like, oh, no way. um,
Yeah.
but I
So
just,
did you not, you didn't go to college?
no, I went to trade school. Like I studied for like a year and a half to be a hairstylist, and then I worked for
Oh, yeah.
I worked as a hairstylist for a bit, and then went on a vacation to South Africa for 2 weeks, came back, or 3 weeks, came back, and was like, I would like to go and be all kinds of places in the world for a long period of time. So then I
Wow.
left my job and went and did that, and yeah, learned a lot and grew a lot, and also started thinking a whole lot more about like just existence, the nature of reality, and what even life is and what's it all about, and became like way more interested and like engaged in the actual like experience of being a human being, but
Mm.
with not with probably less direction. So I am a little bit like just lost, but in a way that doesn't really bother me so much.
Mm. Yeah.
um but when you just said, how did you describe DC? You said it's what kind of a place?
Cold,
Cool.
harsh, scary.
I only have met one person from DC, and he left such an impression on me. I met him in Mexico, and his name was Brett, and he never took his sunglasses off ever. He had like sunglasses that were so black, like you couldn't see through them. So I don't know what his eyes look like. And he had like long, curly brown hair and like a big beard. So I have no idea what this person's face actually looked like, but he was just like so he was cool. I thought he was cool, but he was definitely like had a very kind of cold, hard, edgy
Yeah.
personality. And I just thought I've never been to DC, but I felt like he represented it well.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like coming honestly, there's a serious California, maybe West Coast in general, but like California and East Coast difference that I've felt
Mhm.
and that I can't really articulate, but other Californians who've moved to the East Coast share this feeling of like it's just different. Like people are just different and it doesn't feel it's hard to feel fully at home because it's just such a different speed. And I think DC like really exemplifies it.
Is DC like I've never been there. I've been Like the only places I've been on the East Coast, really, I've been to New York and I've been like to New Jersey, which are,
Mhm.
same. But is it like the same kind of pace, but as New York?
I would say it's a very different city than New York because it's not like
Oh.
cool and it's not funky or artsy and it doesn't attract funky people at all.
Right.
But and it's less compressed and it's pretty small and it's the population is only I think 600,000. So it's not even that populated. Um, but I think it's similar in the bustle a little bit and in people's kind of just like head down, I'm getting where I'm going attitude. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's such an industry town, like the way that LA is like everyone's in the film industry. It's like everyone works for the government kind of thing.
In DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the government, right. Okay, so that's like a very different kind of industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like complete opposite.
Yeah. So where are you now? You're in California.
Now I'm in California. Yeah.
And what part of California?
LA area,
Right, but like,
technically Glendale, close to
all right.
Pasadena. Yeah.
I don't know LA all that well. Been
It's
there
a
like a couple
I
times.
it's a nice little area. We're kind of on the outskirts of the city, so we're nestled in this little valley, and
Oh, cool.
it's a really nice spot. Yeah.
Nice. Do you go to the song circles ever then?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you
Song
sing?
circle. Well, yes. At song circle, I do sing. um, Song circle's been such a lovely, interesting thing for me. That's how I really got to know Raven, actually. Because my sister, or it used to be at Mother Tree, which know about Mother Tree.
Somewhat. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
kind of just like
exactly what it is, but
it's just like this really beautiful piece of land that a lot of people in the like Earth Temple community, Mother Tree community, Raven's friends live at. And my sister lived there for a little over a year, and when Raven was living there, so that's how I first met her. And then she started Song Circle, and I was going in the summer, and it would always be something where like I was always really nervous to go, and usually I would go with my mom. But she's like not the type to be nervous, but I would be nervous, and I would be kind of dreading it because it's like a 30-40 minute drive out there, and we'd both kind of be like dreading the drive and like, do we really want to go to Song Circle? Like, is it worth it to go tonight? And then like drag ourselves there, and then we go, and it's like the most beautiful sacred experience, and we're like and we stay we're like we think we're going to leave early and we stay like all night, and yeah, it's a really really beautiful experience that's also very hard to describe.
yeah, I was just gonna say, how do you describe it?
It's
Well,
honestly similar to voice codes in a way, like it's not like so much instruction from Raven like so specifically about the voice, but there's a check-in in the beginning, and it's interesting. The tone of it can be so different. Like a couple weeks ago, we it's one woman who was there was having just she was in a really intense period of grief and emotion, and so it kind of started off with her all of us being really present with what she was feeling and kind of just helping her work through these really heavy feelings, and then that led us into the most intense song circle I've ever had. It was like so deep, so deep. It was like ceremony level, and we were all participating in this song with this drum, and I was feeling it so hard. We were all feeling it. It was the energy in the room was insane. And then as we kind of faded out, Raven sang this, I think it was a Celtic song or maybe Nordic like prayer song, and it was so beautiful, and the transition from the whole group song to that was literally maybe the deepest kind of prayer I feel like I've ever been in. It was so intense. um yeah, and so it can be like that, and everyone came out of it just like whoa, like we need to take that in for a while. And then literally last week, a couple days ago at Song Circle, we were like watching SpongeBob and Powerpuff videos. So like the vibe is just whatever it needs to be.
right, yeah. You can't really describe it in one way, and then, I'm like, I'm gonna go to Song Circle and expect this like very heavy, deep experience, so they can be super different.
Exactly. You
I
never
love
know.
that. So it's like very dynamic.
Hmm.
Does it feel like you're in like a trance? My stomach is like grumbling, and I think my
I
microphone's
can't
picking
hear.
it up. Okay.
That's the worst. I always get that in the library, like the silent floor.
It's like, oh, that's funny. Um, do you meditate?
I do meditate. I
Do you have a
used to
good
meditate
practice, or is it like
consistently.
inconsistent?
It is now inconsistent. It used to be very consistent, and it did me so good. It
Mm.
did me so good. And then honestly, only in the last couple of months I've gotten out of my routine of it. And it's always hard. It's so hard for me to get back into it though.
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
do you
Sounds.
meditate?
No, that's one that I've like never thus far, so far, not yet in my life have I like uh cultivated a meditation practice. Like I've developed like a lot of habits that serve me well over periods of time, and right now I'm not really so
Hmm.
habitual and I'm feeling it. um but yeah, like in terms of like having a meditation practice, I know that it's like one of the best things that you can do for yourselves. But yeah, how do you, when you would do it, was it be like part of like a morning routine or an evening routine? Or I'm
Yeah.
just hoping you can just give me some
Yeah.
context.
So it was part of my morning routine. And it was such a big deal for me. It was like I built this perfect morning routine, like as close to perfect as can be. It was last January, so like a year ago. I had this, actually it was the last time I had a mushroom experience. Um, it was on the day after my birthday, and my like best friend had just like made this day for me. He was only taking a little bit, and I was taking a pretty significant amount, and his like gift to me was just like this beautiful day that we had. And um it was the most intense mushroom experience I'd had. It was like the first time that I had had like any kind of visual thing, and the first time that I went into it with like real intentions. And I went into it with these intentions of, because so that was following first semester of my sophomore year, which was very dark time. It was very difficult. That was like I came off the summer high, crashed down into the fall election, DC scary. And so then I was home for break, and I wanted to go into my spring semester with just better, like taking care of myself better, and having good routines that kept me in a good flow while being somewhere that didn't feel good to me.
Mm.
And so I was kind of going into that experience with those intentions a little bit. And yeah, it was like this incredible, amazing experience. And starting that very next day, I wasn't sure exactly like I want to be meditating every day or what exactly I was going to be doing, but I got up and I went on a walk that next morning, beautiful walk in my neighborhood. And then I just was like, I want to meditate right now. And I meditated, and then I journaled, and then that trifecta became my routine for literally up until like this summer when I went on this other trip that like changed the way my life was going. But
Walk, meditate, journal
yes.
every
Yeah.
morning.
Every morning. And I was like,
Oh,
for real, every morning, even when it was snowing outside, I was dedicated. But it wasn't, it usually things like that feels like a chore, but it was
yeah.
like, this is the only thing that's keeping me going right now is like the stability of this routine and how good I know it makes me feel.
See, that's so different. Like sometimes you really need to use like large amounts of self-discipline and like lots of effort and like
Mhm.
really make things
Yeah.
happen. And other times like the action is so inspired, because you're like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then it's more like you're being pulled to do it rather than you're trying to like push through these, you know, barriers that you set up for yourself. And
Yeah.
I feel like what I've been doing is I'm just like idly waiting for that to hit me. But I think
No, for
at this,
real.
yeah, because sometimes it's like that. Sometimes I know that I've had those kind of experiences where like, I don't know, establishing like a good exercise routine and stuff. It's like, oh, I really want to do this. Like I wake up and I'm like, I want to move, I want to sweat. I want to move my body, like it's not like, oh, I need to do it. And so yeah, so now I've just been kind of like waiting for the inspiration to hit, but it's not really. And so I think this time around it's gonna take a little bit more discipline. But I like I like the walk, meditate, and journal as like a little
Hmm.
package
Yeah, it's nice
because,
because it's like you get like the physical, the mental, emotional, cover it all.
mm,
And I love walking. I just like love taking walks, and I love talking to myself. I talk to myself a lot, and walking feels like a special time to be doing it, and like no distractions.
you talk to yourself out loud.
Out loud, yes.
Yes. Nice. It's good. Then you actually get to hear your voice, which is nice.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
I have, sorry.
no, no, go on.
I was gonna say I feel like I have some of my like best thought breakthroughs when I'm speaking aloud to myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can relate. I was going for lots of walks during the first wave of the COVID times. I was
Mhm.
actually in England, and um, yeah, every day would be like go for a walk, come home, work out, breakfast, like had all these little routines and stuff. And I just felt like I was constantly just like, I don't know, receiving downloads or uh transmissions or whatever you would call it,
Yeah,
just like having
yeah.
like brilliant ideas. And I'm like constantly inspired, just looking at the sky and I'm like, oh, and making all these connections like with just different ideas that I've had and things that I've learned and just feeling like I'm so just alive and wise right now. This is actually kind of what started the podcast was because I would just be like
Wow.
having all these ideas and I'm like, I have so much to say and I like don't really feel like there's anyone who wants to hear it. So instead of like, annoying the people around me with like Lataya's all the day is like rambling. I was like, well, if I just make a channel, then the people can choose to anybody who wants to listen to it, like it's available, but I'm not like forcing it upon you. Like, if you want to hear what's going on up here, like come on over and it's available was kind of my approach. But there was something that you just said that reminded me of something I wanted to say, but I think I forgot because I started talking. Yeah, I forgot. It'll come back.
That's such a beautiful flow to be in, though. And to
Yes.
just like, yeah, I feel that. Just like, I love being in it like that. But then there's just times when you're not. And I also have had like, I went through a period of journaling at night, and then it started to feel like very ingenuine. And I was like, I don't even want to journal right now. Like, I feel like I'm forcing myself to. And what am I really getting from it? And so then I stopped. I was like, I feel like I need to like listen to that and kind of follow what feels good. And sometimes I think that's the case, and other times it's good to force it a little bit to get it
Yeah.
going, like kickstart it. But I don't know.
I know. And then how do you decide like when you should do which one, Because
Hmm.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
like you don't want to you don't want to like force yourself to do things that you have like a strong opposition towards and then you're just like not enjoying the whole thing when you're doing it. But then also sometimes so much time will go by without taking like any action and you're like,
Yeah. And then,
am I being just like lazy and ineffective as a human?
yeah.
I don't really know
Yeah.
how to decide, but we're learning. Do you want to tell me about the trip to Bolivia? You said that kind of like changed a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. That was uh, a really interesting time. So I was supposed to go the previous summer. It's just like it was a month-long trip with a program. It's called Where There Be Dragons. It's a really cool program, or it's an organization, I guess, that has all these programs. And my sister had taken a gap year with them, and so I'd been really wanting to do this trip. I'm in the pursuit of learning Spanish, and I knew that I was going to Ecuador actually this coming semester in like 5 days from now. I'm going to Ecuador, and so
Oh my God, how cool.
I
Okay.
know, very exciting. So I knew that was coming. So I really wanted to go to Bolivia to work on my Spanish. And that was, yeah, it was supposed to be 2 summers ago. COVID didn't happen. And so it's on for last summer. Um, but there's supposed to be like a college trip that I would have taken because I was like in college. But the college trip got canceled because there wasn't enough interest. So they're like, do you want to go on the high school trip? And they're like, there should be like like 4 or 5 other 20-year-olds there as well. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, I don't even care. Like, I just want to go. I just want to travel. And so I went on this high school trip expecting a few other 20-year-olds. Um, but it was just me, solo 20-year-old, and 10 um 16, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. So like 3 years, like 3, 4 years, like isn't normally a big difference, but in those ages it is so significant because none of them had graduated high school, been to college, lived on their own, experienced like the craziness of life that comes when you start adulting. And so it was very interesting. I was like, I made some very, very good friends, but my position in the group was I was very much had kind of like a leadership role that I didn't know I was signing up for. And um, yeah, like socially, it wasn't like so much of a social thing for me, even though, yeah, like I had friends. I was not involved. There's just like a lot of drama in high school things. And I made it very clear from the beginning that I was like, I'm not going to take part in this. Like, I don't care who's sitting next to who on the bus. Like, let's just be friends and be cool about it. So, yeah, so it was a very kind of lonely experience for me. I think the nature of a trip like that is going to be lonely anyway because you're surrounded by these people who like you get to know so fast, so quick, like so close, so quickly, but they don't really know you and they don't really know your life or your family or your people. And basically what the trip was, it was like part backpacking, um, which was so intense. I had never backpacked before, and it was like for real the most physically challenging thing I've ever done, which was a really beautiful thing to witness, honestly. My seeing just literally taking my body to the max, 40-pound backpack uphill it at 12,000 feet altitude. It was
Oh
wild.
shit.
Um, so there was a backpacking portion, and then there was a homestay portion. Um, and the homestay portion was very, very intense because I was it. We another really important part of this trip is that we had no phones,
Mm.
no technology at all. We had to give our phones to like the leaders, and so it was really just like you and your journal and your book most of the time.
Mm.
And so during the homestay period, that was like a lot of downtime and a lot I was staying with most of the people were with like whole families with lots of kids. And there was like or like on a farm and there's things to do, but I was with an old couple
And was
and
it just you, or was it you and like another
I was
student?
with another young woman.
Okay.
Um who we were like we were friends, we became friends, but she wasn't one of the people who I was felt like connected to on the trip. Um And so there were just so many days spent where they were just telling us like our parents would be like, just no, no, rest, 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 like all day, like eat breakfast, rest till lunch, eat lunch, rest till dinner. And so like me and the girl, her name was Sage, would like play cards and hang out, but it was also just a lot of time of I was reading 100 Years of Solitude, which was not a good choice of book for the trip because it's a very intense emotional book. um, and so I was, yeah, reading that, just like thinking and just being with my thoughts and being with the pen and paper. And in the moment, it was really uncomfortable a lot of the time. And I was really homesick, way more than I thought that I would be. And yeah, it was kind of hard to even take in all that was happening because it was just such a mix of different things, like culture shock, the loneliness, the new people, and the leadership role that it was hard for me to embrace and hard for me to like really accept that I was taking on until the end, and we're all sharing, and people were like reflecting to me how much I was like inspiring to them and
Oh.
like how much like yeah, just these things about them admiring me, and that's just like intense to take in a way. It's difficult for me to accept like a compliment like that. Um so yeah, that was kind of what the trip was like. And then after the trip was also a very important time. I got back, and for probably like the week after I was back, I was in this it was like a post mushroom state where like it's like that you have the mushroom experience and it's like what the fuck just happened while I was in it, like I don't know what was happening. And then after it's like that integration period where my heart literally felt physically open, like I felt like that raw exposed like juicy feeling, and where I felt like I was like I could absorb just whatever I like was coming to me. And I had this night, it was like just 2 nights after I got back, I was with my friend and I was strumming his guitar, and I'd never played guitar before. Or I'd always kind of like wanted to in a way, but felt so intimidated because it's like big and difficult. Like it just seems so difficult. And I played piano and that's just so different. And but I'm just strumming it, and the vibration of it felt so good on my body, and I felt like it was like just filling me up, and I was like I need to learn to play guitar. It was just this passion that I was just like, I need to do this. And so I spent literally the next month just getting so into playing guitar. And I haven't like kept with it so much since school started in the fall. Um, and I lost that like intensity for it. But I thought it was just so interesting that that came out of it, almost in a similar way that my really good routine came out of that really significant trip.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Whoa. What an experience to like feel it so in your body. And um so are you like would you be able to like strum like a song at this point? Like could you like strum some chords enough to be able to like sing along to it or something?
Yeah, definitely. I like learned kind of the basic chords and a little bit of finger picking with like a couple like easy songs. But yeah, I don't feel like I have any mastery over it except for
For
like
sure.
maybe D chord. I had this funny moment when I was buying a capo. I had just been using my sister's guitar, but I was buying a capo at this guitar store, and like I'm talking to the guy and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I just like recently started playing like a day ago." And he's like, "Oh, like very cool. Like what kind of stuff are you playing?" And I was like, "Oh, like G, C." It's honestly still like that, but
Oh my god, that's amazing. He's like, yeah, those ones are very popular.
you know.
Oh, that's so cute. Um, but that's cool that you have the ability to do that because then when it comes to like practicing with your voice and singing and stuff, like you can do that. Do you have a guitar? You do then.
I do. I got a guitar, which is very
Is it with
exciting.
you? Not
It
no like play
is.
guitar right now, no, but
It's
like
literally right here. It's
ah,
right next to me. Oh my God.
amazing.
It's
Ah,
red
that's your
and
baby.
really beautiful. Um, yeah, I don't really want to play right
No,
now,
no, for sure. No, that's not a real thing.
but sometime maybe I'll whip it out in voice codes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest. Or like one of the have you done that like freestyle exercise? To like say all the things that
Oh, like the affirmations.
no, there's another one.
Oh,
This week's
honestly have not done the homework.
I love it.
Um,
That's like that's like
oh, was
me
that?
in
Oh,
just regular
that was
school.
module 2 though, and
Was it?
I think I watched
Probably.
that video. I think, and she was like, pause the video here, right
Mhm,
for
that
10
one.
minutes. I didn't do
Right
it,
for
but I
10
watched
minutes.
it. I will do
Right.
it.
You yeah. So that could
Did you
be
do it?
um I did it, and then I just felt like I was just being a complainer, so I didn't share it in the chat.
Wait, what was the prompt?
The prompt was to spend 10 minutes um just writing, like don't let your pen come off the page and just write saying like all the things that you wish you could say or like things that you've never
Oh,
said
yeah.
or whatever. And so just feels and then after that, um she's like, okay, now pick one or two lines from there and then use that to like start a freestyle. And so I did it. But then I listened to like some of the other people's things that they posted and it's all just like so inspiring. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be the one to like fuck with the vibe here, you know?
No, I want to hear it. That's like, I feel like that's the whole point. It's like,
I guess,
feel all
yeah.
the vibes,
That's
zero
right, yeah.
judgment.
Sometimes they're just like flying so high though, and I'm like, yes, and then I don't want to be like Buzz Killington or whatever, the one to come in and be like, "Bleh." But oh well. Um,
Yeah.
coming back to your mushroom okay, so you said that the one before you started the meditation practice, that was your second mushroom trip?
I think it was like my fourth, but it was
Fourth.
it was like my most That
Your
was the
first
most
like
recent to
higher
date.
highest
And my
dose?
first, like, yeah, my first big amount. Yeah. My other
Okay.
ones had been very gentle, and really, really beautiful experiences as well. And were a really great part of that summer and of just like
Mm.
being in that good earthy flow. But in a more, yeah, much more gentle way.
When you because okay, so I was proud that you set intentions like before you do the trip, but when you decide that you're gonna take mushrooms, like are you were you taking it because you wanted to seek some kind of clarity, or like what's the or do you just feel mm, like drawn to it, or is it that the opportunity like presents itself? Like I'm always curious about how people come to actually taking
Yeah.
different psychedelics, because sometimes because everybody does it for like different reasons and stuff, and I always think it's kind of interesting how like sometimes they'll be like unavailable for so long, and then suddenly the idea occurs like, oh, I feel like called to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
find this thing, and then suddenly it's like it just comes together like that. But yeah, so I guess my question was, because that's I think when I take them, I like think or believe that it's gonna like bring some clarity about something
Mm-hmm.
that I've been unclear about, you know? Is
Yeah.
that relatable for you?
Yes, definitely. I I first got into it because my that ex-boyfriend, um, it feels weird to call him that because he's still like a very good friend of mine, but yeah,
I like that
he
you don't like saying that either for me. I'm always like
yeah, it's like,
ex. I don't like because
what
people
is
always
that?
talk about their exes in like a, you know, bad
Exactly.
kind of way. So now I'm like my old boyfriend, but then people are like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't
Old
know.
friend.
But
So,
yeah, carry on.
yeah, so he got me into it because he was before he even had like taken any kind of psychedelic. He was just like very into learning about it, and he was just like all up in the research and got me into Paul Stamets. And really, I think it was that I don't. There's like this. Paul Stamets has this story about his first mushroom trip,
With the
and
tree, when he
yes,
climbs
the
up the
tree.
tree and the
So
lightning.
good. So
Yeah,
when I heard that, like that was I was like, oh, like what is this? This is something
yeah.
cool. This is for real. I need to see about this. And so yeah, it kind of just started with interest and just like of the mushroom of the psychedelic experience and what it can do. And I kind of had an attitude of just kind of whenever it comes, whenever it feels right, I'll see about that. And so yeah, my older sister um had some that her good friend had grown, and so she kind of guided me and my best friend, who I've known since kindergarten, Zoe, on just a really lovely little trip. It was in like the little park close to our house in this little kind of like fairy nest, we call it. This just really cute little branches that kind of form a little cave shape, and just next to this. God, I was gonna say rivers. Definitely not a river in California, but like dry creek. Yeah, beautiful setting. And I wouldn't say I went into that with really specific intentions. I think my sister kind of like set that up for us of like, what are your intentions? And like had us have a little ceremonial moment as we were taking them and before. But
The
I think
first
my
one's like
intention of that,
curiosity.
yeah, it was kind of just like my intention is to just like feel it and see what I feel and what it does and be open.
Mhm.
Um, and that's very much what that was. That was such a fun day. It was so good because it wasn't super intense at all. It was not really in my mind in any way. It didn't not in a conscious way. And it was just that feeling of just like wanting to play, like digging in the dirt and painting on myself and like climbing the trees and just being just like singing. And Anna, my sister, she hadn't taken any, and the whole time she was just like playing her guitar and singing to us, and it was just so fun and almost childlike, in a
Yeah,
sort
that's what I was
of
thinking.
way. Yeah,
Just like
so that was
revived
how
you with
yeah.
childlike wonder. Sorry,
No,
interrupting.
no. But yeah, that was the beginning, and it was, and then that just like led me to be even more curious of like, oh, how can this actually be utilized? And um yeah, and so then I think from there I kind of would go in with a little bit more specific intentions of like, help me sort this out, or like what's going on with whatever.
Mm. Have you ever had, oh my gosh, is that echoing? Have you ever had uh like a bad trip or
Honestly, not really. I've had like very uncomfortable moments in like
mm,
probably every trip. Um, Especially like the come up is just like it's always very intense for me. That really significant one that was like the higher dose was such a crazy intense come up. It was like I always had gotten that feeling like first it's like the nausea and then kind of this very vulnerable feeling. I feel like I'm physically exposed and I get this weight
mm,
in my shoulders. And so I was getting that, but at such an intensity that it was genuinely terrifying and I was so anxious and just like, oh my God, like I don't even want to be doing this right now. It just felt so scary and awful. And then I get hit with this I was like up when at this part when it was just beginning to hit. I was like we were up on this like bench overlooking the valley that we live in and like downtown down there, and then you could see all the way to the ocean. So beautiful. And then I'm hit with this extreme deja vu like I've never felt before, and just further was terrifying. It felt like everything I thought, everything my friend said, everything that I saw, it was like I knew exactly what was going to be said. And it was so scary. It was literally so scary in the moment. And then I take like a very small hit of a J, and almost instantly all of like the deja vu, the anxiety, the like heaviness, the nausea is like flushed out of me. And I like look up and everything is just making a river out of itself and just like flowing. Everything is flowing and my eyes are like, whoa. And then I was like in it.
Oh, wow. What do you how do you like regulate that fear and that like because it's always like super uncomfortable when they're like starting to be
Yeah,
felt in the body. Um, so what's your approach to like keep yourself from just freaking the fuck out?
kind of just like breathe breathe deep, and
Mm,
it always just feels good to be like held by whoever I'm with.
mm.
um just like the physical touch of like knowing that I'm supported and just yeah, breathing.
Ah, that's good. But yeah, the breathing is important.
Yeah, but yeah, I would
I
say
don't
that's
go
sorry.
on. I don't know what you're gonna
um I wouldn't say, yeah, during the actual um trips I haven't really had a bad experience, but oftentimes after, or a couple times maybe after, that like those integration days have been a little bit heavier. Not like, oh my God, life is beautiful and amazing, like whoa, like I have some stuff to think about. um but I feel like I've been pretty fortunate to have in the moment feeling for the most part good, with parts that are like scary and like mental loops that are just difficult and things like that, but yeah.
Mm. I listened to like before I took any psychedelics or anything, I listened to a lot of Terrence McKenna for just like
Mhm.
long periods of time.
Mhm.
And so he kind of had me ready for just surrendering to the experience like before it happens, and that would always kind of
Yeah.
be my approach. Like when I would take something, as soon as I would have those, I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And when those feelings like start to get really heavy, or sometimes it gets, I don't know, sometimes it gets scary. Like it feels like something is like about to take over your consciousness.
For
And
real,
then
for
the
real.
human in you is like, oh no, the ego is like, no, don't. I want to be, I'm the driver. But yeah, it's always kind of interesting to like, for me, the biggest observation that I've had, like in terms of when people struggle with taking a psychedelic, it's always when they don't surrender to the experience. And like if you carry with if you carry like any resistance towards this thing that you've agreed to do, then you're going to have a really difficult time. And
Mhm.
so I guess, I mean, that's really what you use the breath for, right? Is to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
relax your body and I guess when you reconnect with your breath, like you're kind of tuning into something that's not your like just egoic like mental self. And so you're kind of like tuning into your spirit, and that way you can kind of feel connected to yourself enough to allow the substance to kind of do its thing without being afraid of like losing yourself in the process, because I think that's sometimes what people
Yeah.
get scared of.
Yeah. Or just feeling like out of control. But I
Mm,
feel it's such an interesting experience because it's like it's different than having like a bad high on weed or whatever because that feels like you're still there, like your normal self is still there in your mind with you and you're like, "Oh no, I'm too high right now." Like, fuck.
mm,
But on the mushrooms, it's like that part of yourself that is like that would be over aware of like how you're coming across or whatever. It just like or for me has just not really been there. It's like I even if I'm feeling so crazy, like I've never felt this way before, it doesn't feel scary. It feels like I'm just feels like a new part of myself.
mm. Oh, interesting. I remember one time I took mushrooms with my boyfriend at the time and a roommate, and they were both having like just the most polar opposite
Mm.
type experiences. It was it was so stupid. Uh, like my boyfriend was like just he was not welcoming the experience whatsoever at all, and he like didn't like how uncomfortable he felt. Just needed he went and climbed into bed and like wrapped himself in a blanket and put on headphones. And he just wanted to listen to a very particular song to make himself feel so that he could control
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
experience, right? And I'm like, okay, like you do, do what you got to do to make yourself feel safe. And then my my roommate was just like walking, just he was just like feeling really hilarious and like walking around the house like feeling like a gorilla and just laughing hysterically. And then my boyfriend was like so bothered by the sound of him laughing and was just interpreting him in a very different way. And I don't even remember what happened because I was like I listened to the song with him, and like this one song felt like a lifetime, and it took me on this like whole journey, and I was like processing like how I feel about just everything. And I remember like having this moment during that trip where like I had admitted to myself that like I didn't really want to be in this relationship. And I've continued to be in the relationship for like long time after that. But it was such a bizarre thing to experience because I like didn't want to admit it,
Mm,
but with the mushroom, it was just like this is how you really feel. And I
yeah.
remember it was just I was sitting in like such discomfort because I was like, well, fuck. Now that thing has been like not expressed out loud of my mouth, but it's made itself aware that that's how I really feel.
Mm.
And I
Wow.
was like, damn it, it won't let me lie to myself.
For real, it does not.
That's
But to be
mushrooms.
with him when you were feeling that, that must have been intense.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of thing because I was still like trying to be there for him so that he could have a positive experience. I wasn't sure. I was like, maybe that was just a silly little idea that I had just because I'm having, because this isn't as much fun as I thought it would be. But it was totally not like that at all. It was like a very real, very honest
Yeah.
thing that, which I thought was just so cool.
Hmm.
Not at the time, but looking back,
In
I think that's
retrospect.
really, yeah, that like it doesn't, it helps you like be absolutely honest with yourself sometimes. But
Yeah.
Sometimes the you is not ready to hear that. Um, that's another reason I think why I'm like really interested in the whole voice coach program is because I think I'm mm, I would say I very much like want to be open and honest at like to the fullest extent. Like this is kind of like my pursuit is like to just be so honest always. And I think because I've had times in the past, like that for instance, where I'm not honest with myself and I'm like, how much time am I going to spend like trying to convince myself of something that I know is not the truth? It just seems like such a strange way to behave. So,
Mm, yeah.
like, why do we do that? I don't know. It's
Why
so
do we do that?
weird. Like,
Yeah. And it just like God, consciousness.
mm.
We need to feel things and to decipher between different feelings and like what even is honesty. And we know what it feels like, but how do we know what it feels like, you know?
Mhm.
Crazy.
It's weird. It's like lying with the relationship piece, like being dishonest with myself about how I feel about being in this relationship because I want to be able to like give that person what they want, like, and
Yeah.
they don't want me to feel that way. So I'll like try to convince myself that I can feel another way so that I can make this other person happy. And
Yeah.
really that's like not serving anybody. It's not good for the person that like we're trying to please because you're like, yeah, if you deceive yourself, you're not doing anybody any favors, especially if they're going to be in a relationship with you. Like, Lataya, way to go. uh,
But like I feel like that shows just how deeply ingrained the people pleasing mindset is and how it's like it's not just like people that you meet and only kind of know that you're in that with like I feel it as well deeply with my family sometimes like people I know
mm,
the best I still feel that need to please.
mm, the need to please. What a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And it always like, for me, always like, I tend to just like, I'm such a bad mind reader, but I always want to like assume how other people are gonna like what it is that other people want of me or what it is that other people think of me
Yeah.
or what it is that other people think of other people. I'm always trying to like understand how everybody is feeling and I'm just never right, because I'm only just projecting how I think that they feel onto them. And it it is like so funny. I don't
It
it's
is
such a pain in
honestly.
the ass, but it's also hilarious because it's like the cause of all my anxiety. But it's so stupid. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, like just the anxiety that like in general is just funny. Like your first social anxiety that I feel, it's like it's good to think about it as a funny thing because it is. Because it's like so self-created and
Mm,
just not necessary. It's
I
so unnecessary and it's like not even real. Like what? What? We're just other humans and we're all just the same and figuring it out and we're all just thinking about ourselves all the time.
that's right. Always. That's one of those that's a really good like reminder to have
Hmm.
that like when you're like, oh, what's this person thinking about? It's like they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about them, you know?
Yep.
Geesh.
Yeah.
Um, all right. What else?
Hmm. Hmm.
Taking up an hour of your time already.
An interesting thing that um, came up in voice codes the first week, I think it was, I forget who it was, but the woman was sharing about how in the car she would be like, she liked to snack in the car. So instead of
Mm.
snacking, like singing over snacking, and then it was like smoking over snacking, scrolling, or not snacking, singing over smoking, singing over scrolling, um, which I thought was I just liked that. And then that got me thinking about it. Oh, and Raven also said, um, that she feels like all smokers are singers, and when she
Yeah.
sees people like smoking, like whatever they're smoking, it's just like that need to fill your lungs and just have that like big lung expression. She's like, they're all singers, and I just know it. And just made me reflect on my relationship with weed, and tobacco in a way, which has been a less prominent thing, but also something that I've like felt some addictive tendencies toward in moments. Um, but just kind of how weed like started off as this thing where it was like the coolest thing ever, and it was just like crazy, and it kind of made me begin like the very beginning seeds of realizing just how infinitely expansive the mind is, and just how there's just different ways to think about things, and there's just so many things, opinions to hear and things to learn, and just kind of opened me up in that way, and it was so exciting. And then over like some time and more use, it lost that weight and kind of just became like a habit and a routine, and something that was just like easy to just be. It's okay, it's kind of like an easy way of connecting to source or to like
Yeah.
spirit, God, whatever, because
Yeah.
like it gives you that. I find that I feel my most addictive tendencies towards it when I'm at school and I'm like not feeling myself like emotionally or spiritually in any way, and I'm just like grinding and I'm so busy all the time and just like feeling really weighed down by my inability to balance things well. And then it's just like at the end of the day, like I just want to like get high so that I can still like it's like it almost feels like I'm like making up for what I'm not doing in my day, you know? It's just like an easy way of, yeah, like feeling good in that connected way, you know what I mean?
Mhm. No,
And
totally.
yeah, it's something I've been thinking about. Do you have like much of a relationship with marijuana?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just definitely become a habit. I have very mixed feelings about like how I use it because I think I'm just in denial, like I don't consider this, but I am definitely like a pot smoker, like I'll probably smoke it like at the end of most days, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely appreciate the like, I mean, the way, it either like reduces the anxiety or it like creates it, but
Yeah.
you never know what it's going to be
You
like.
never know.
You're like, if I'm feeling anxious, and sometimes it helps, and sometimes I'm feeling fine, and then I'm like, well, let's just smoke some weed, and now I'm anxious. So
Mm.
not really sure, but I do jujitsu, and do you know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah, so like a
That's very cool.
grappling
I'm very
martial
interested
art.
in martial
Oh,
arts.
yes, I love it. It's what yeah, really like kind of saved me from my own like mental
Mm.
state at a time. And I find like um using cannabis and then doing jujitsu, it's just like I
Wow.
become like so just in my body, and I don't know, I find like I'm way more relaxed and like fluid and creative with my movements, and so that makes it that's like a big like incentive for me to continue to do it, like when,
Yeah.
like when I
Yeah,
like smoke
totally.
some weed and then I go to jiu-jitsu and I'm just like absolutely killing it. Um, but also because
Like
yeah.
also cool.
But yeah, that it's yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing because I think it can be really, really, really beneficial and a really positive thing. Um, but like here in Vancouver, I don't know what it's like in LA but in Vancouver it's like there's a weed store, like it's so accessible, and it's
Yeah.
I think because it was what's the word for when like it's banned,
Illegal?
prohibited, what?
Prohibited.
Yeah. Because even when it was like illegal, it was not even like fully illegal. It was like this kind of
Oh,
gray
like
area, you know?
medically legal.
Yeah. But I guess yeah, because it was like yeah, I guess well, let's use illegal for lack of a better word. Which honestly that probably is still the right word. Okay, so I think because it was illegal for so long and like so many people like pushed to make it legal and now it's so accessible, it's just like it it's it's just so available. It's everywhere all the time, and just
Yeah.
everybody's smoking weed. Like I worked at a cannabis store for a while, like after
Oh,
I
that's
came home
cool.
from traveling, and it was just like everybody in the neighborhood was at. It was the busiest fucking store
Wow.
ever. I'm like, okay, so like everybody's high all the time. I don't know, always. Um, and yeah, so as for like myself personally, yeah, it's mixed feelings about my relationship with it. I feel like guilty about it sometimes, and then because I have those feelings of guilt, I'm like, okay, well, I should probably listen to that because I don't know. Because sometimes I think it makes me not as productive. I think I'll like smoke it because I'm like, I'm gonna have a lot of really great ideas right now, but then I'm just like going in circles and like
Yeah,
not actually doing anything.
I totally get that. And it's like hard to know exactly like what it's gonna be on that day,
Yeah,
how it's
yeah.
gonna come through. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I feel like I like think so well with it and like so I like get into really good, juicy conversations with people, or like I'll be like creating something, or I just like lay.
Hmm. Yeah, and even in social settings, like I can never
Mm,
predict like whether it's gonna like
I feel that too.
serve me or hinder me. You know, sometimes I'm like you smoke with some people and then yeah, like you have those really juicy conversations and like it's just flowing and it's really great. And then other times I smoke it and I'm like, I am just I can't stop thinking what are they thinking about me right now?
Yeah.
Like my mouth is dry. I don't know. I would like to just go home. Like and then
Yeah,
it's like
no, literally, like everything that I say, I'm like, that was so weird. Like, why did I just say that? Like, like sometimes have this thing where like the last word that I say will start like would be replaying in my mind, and it'll like distort and just make me extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but you never know.
yeah. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get with it. And but yeah. It's probably like uh it's to the point now like if I go like a few if I'm like I'm not gonna smoke weed for a few days, like I'm just so fucking cranky. It's like really unfortunate.
Oh.
I'm like, what I don't know what the problem is. I'm just in such a bad mood. And then I'll like, smoke a
Yeah.
little bit of weed and then it's fine. Then we're good. Then everything. And but
An
just
interesting thing that I learned, because I would like for probably like a few months last year and into like beginning of the summer, I would be like I would probably smoke like every night and go to sleep high usually, or
yeah.
like with it still in me. And I had like a small fear of not, because I used to have a lot of trouble sleeping and like never would, when I would smoke. But then I heard on a podcast that, so when you go to sleep and you're under any influence of like alcohol, any drug, your body doesn't get into REM sleep, and so you're like, which is why a lot of time you like wouldn't have dreams when you go to sleep high, and so yeah, so you're not getting that dream time, which is also like the deepest rest and so necessary for your body. And because it's so necessary for your body, your brain stores the amount of hours that it lost of REM every night that you missed it, and so like keeps that tally. And then when you don't smoke or drink or whatever and you go to bed sober and your body can be in REM, it like ramps it up, and it's like trying to get in all that REM time.
Oh.
It's like making up for it. So I was like fascinated by that, and I felt a guilt for depriving my body of it. And when I went to Bolivia, I didn't have any weed, or anything, that whole time, like a little over a month. And so I think I would have had crazy dreams anyway, because it was just like an intense experience, and there's just a lot happening every day and a lot to be thinking about. But I think that amplified it to a point where I was having, it felt like I was like dreaming the entire night, and it would be these like epic sagas of dreams, and I'd wake up and remember everything so clearly. And because like all I had to do was like journal, I would wake up every morning and write down my dreams. And it was just like, it was just cool. And I just think that's an interesting thing about the sleep.
Cool. And
Yeah.
that's super good for like for your brain and your memory is writing
Yeah.
down your dreams right when you wake up. So that's awesome. Ah, I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever like had a dream that or like dreamt something and then it happened in the future?
I don't think that I have. Not that I know of.
Me neither,
Have
but
you? I hope to.
yeah, I would love that. I don't
I
think.
definitely have some pretty like, I feel like significant dreams though that will be
Mhm.
reflective of my life or kind of give me some message that I'm needing.
What's the most recent one?
Most recent one was kind of intense. This it was like wow, I hadn't had something that felt like a dream that felt like this in a long time, but um my old boyfriend who's still my friend has like a um it's not even a romantic relationship but a really good friendship with another woman, and he's been friends with her for a really long time, and she's always just been this like really sore spot for me and caused me just so much anxiety. And not even who she is, like I don't even really know her, but she just like came to represent like everything that is jealousy and everything that is like the sisterhood wound, and just yeah, feelings of just not being good enough, not being pretty enough, whatever, and seeing like this other woman as everything that I want to be kind of thing, even though like she's not really, she just like represents that feeling. And so yeah, she's just like a intense figure in my life, and we don't even really have a relationship at all, but she's been in my dreams so many times of like, and they're almost always well, every time until this time, it was always like in a really kind of like traumatic way, and I would wake up and feel like really icky from it. And yeah, and she just yeah, difficult. But the other night, I've really been like actively trying to just like feel like what is that, and like I need to get past that. And I feel like what that it also just represents like just a lot of judgment that I hold, and just judgment that I carry into so many different parts of my life, like towards people, towards experiences, myself especially, um, like the way I'm feeling a certain day, whatever. Just and I've been really trying to move through my days in a non-judgmental way. So I think it's maybe connected to that. So I have this dream where we're at a party together and we see each other from across the room, and we like run to each other and have we embrace so deeply, and we look at each other and we're like, hi, like I need to know you, who are you? And then we I don't that's the only moment that I remember really specifically, and being in my car together, we like went to go get ice at the party. um but and I woke up from it feeling so good and light, and like I had literally just overcome something. I think it's like I think it's just like it's helping me in the process, but it was just a very profound experience and feeling after. And yeah, that was a big moment.
That's so cool because you have all these kind of like negative emotions involving this person, even though it's not really about that person. And then you yourself and your, consciousness or subconsciousness, whatever, probably as a team, like worked that
Yeah,
out on
literally.
your own because it was, I guess, really only like your problem to begin with, right? Like it had nothing really to do with that girl in real
Literally.
life. Ah, amazing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. Cool. And so how has it like actually affected the way that you feel about her in general in
It
real
made me
life?
feel like I actually do want to like get to know her, because like we share, like she's very close with him and I'm very close with him, like obviously we would get along very well. And so it has made me like much more open to having a relationship with her, and then kind of just like in general, just feeling more ready to, I mean, I say this like hypothetically, I feel like I haven't really dove into it in any way, but more ready to the fact that we physically embraced and ran to each other just felt very significant, and feels like I'm now ready to embrace those parts of myself that I saw reflect, that I projected onto her in this negative light of just like, yeah, of all the feelings of judgment and fear of unworthiness, fear of like not living up to whatever standard I think a man would hold me to, or whatever.
Mhm.
Just, yeah, like a readiness to face those like darker parts of myself that are associated with jealousy.
My gosh, Adela, you're like so cool and self-aware. I still cannot believe you're 21.
Thank
What?
you.
Yeah. Even like
Mm.
just the way the relationship that you have with like your previous boyfriend. Like how long were you guys together for? Because you're
We were together for like a year and a half,
oh,
in like a really like we're together with no one else kind of way. And then our relationship has taken like a few different forms for the past year and a half, but not, we haven't been like together seriously, or like committed to each other. But
mhm.
in the moments when we're physically in the same place, we like we continue to hold this very, we're just like we're literally just best friends. And so it was very hard to just fully say goodbye to the relationship because it didn't feel like there was any reason to, other than wanting to get to know our independent selves better. So when we're physically in the same place, we like do see each other usually.
Ah, that's so cool. That just like speaks to your emotional maturity for you and him to be able to do that because I know people who are like much older than me who like don't feel, I guess, don't trust people in that kind of way, or maybe don't trust
Mhm.
themselves, or I don't know. I think that's like so awesome. I am my old boyfriend. We were together for like 4.5 years, and
Wow.
then we didn't speak for like probably another 4.5 years after because it didn't really end necessarily well. But it was important to me to like that eventually we would be able to be friends because like I value this person as a person so much. He's actually going to be on my podcast with his mom because
Wow.
his, his mom his mom and his dad were um they were like divorced since just forever. But when I met them, and he was already an adult, like I met them and they would like they were like friends even though they had like a really like nasty relationship at times. But the fact that they like chose to like raise their children in a home that has like love and respect, and like their parents being civil towards one another, I just thought was so huge and like so
Yeah.
inspiring for me. And I'm like,
Wow.
because I grew up like my parents split up when I was 3, and they've never, it's like they're like there's no like they don't want to speak to each other, they don't want to talk about one another. And so it's just such an interesting way to grow up where it's like your two halves are like th- don't want anything to do with one another, but like I'm the whole made out of these two things. um yeah, so I just like I really really respect when people are able to like
Yeah.
have a relationship and then no long and then have the relationship change form, but they still honor the love that they had for one another. And I just
Hmm.
think that's so cool. And so like the fact that you're 21, it's just I'm like, oh, I still I
Yeah.
just can't believe it. I think it's so cool. So that you're totally wise and have like
Thank you.
a lot, yeah, I think a lot of like emotional intelligence, which is super 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 valuable. And yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I think that relationship like gave me that in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I feel like at least a lot of my friends, their first relationship or their first like love was like just like, yeah, it was like it was good and important and significant, but it wasn't like so grand. And a lot of them had like their like, a few relationships down the road, they find someone who's like opens them up in that way and just feels like a really soul connection. And so to have it was like basically my first relationship period um be so intense is like such a blessing and a curse in so many ways. Because like I don't know, yeah, it's beautiful, and it really allowed us to develop in a really special way because we feed off of each other so well. But at the same time, just difficult because we have this awareness that we don't want to just like be together forever. We want to be with other people and see what it's like to, like, yeah, feel new things and feel different kinds of love and experience life by ourselves with other people. Um, but also just, yeah, like holding the fact that that's difficult, and love is a crazy thing. It's so
Mhm.
crazy and nobody teaches you about it. Like, what? It's like the most mind-boggling experience ever, and it just like there's no preparation.
Mm. Mm. And it has so many forms and so many ways of
Yeah,
like being expressed and being felt and
limitless.
uh-huh. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's super special that you guys like support one another in um the like desire to experience other people and stuff without just being overcome with those like feelings of like protectiveness and jealousy
Mhm.
and fear, because that's what really like muddies the waters and then what can affect the relationship in a negative way. So that's like again huge, so cool. I
Yeah. Mm.
love it. All right.
Mm.
Well, it's been like an hour and a half,
I'm talking
so
for
that's probably a good chunk
yeah,
of
yeah,
time. So yes, once again, thank you so much. This has been really
yeah.
fun
This is
to
so
like get to know
lovely.
you better.
I know, me too. And now, like, I one of my intentions also in voice codes was to come out of it with like at least one like friend
Mhm.
that I speak to outside of the class, and now I've made at least one.
Woo. There we go. Yes. Oh, and definitely more than one though will come out of that. Those people are incredible.
Yes, they're so wonderful. It's so fun.
Everyone's so great.
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
And I was like really trying not to be nervous and just I was trying not to think about it too much, because I feel like if I thought about it too much, then I would like think about things that I really wanted to say. And then I knew in the moment if like I would like stumble over things that like I knew I wanted to say. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go in like completely unprepared, not even think about it. Like I wrote out a couple of things that like I thought I might talk about. Like we didn't talk about any of them, but
Ah,
like
well, what are they?
no, no, we'll talk about
Come
this sometime.
on. It's only 7 p.m. I was just like, I didn't have any notes here. Well, I had a couple notes, but we covered those.
I literally just wrote down a couple of things.
Now I gotta know.
Do you want me to share one, like something?
Uh-huh.
Okay. One thing that I wrote down, I was kind of just like looking back over some things that I'd written. Do you know about the gene keys with
I've
what's
heard
his
about it,
name?
but I
Like
have not.
Robert Rudd, I think. I always thought it was I'd only heard it said and I thought it was jinkies. And then I was like trying to find it and I realized it's gene keys.
Yes.
Um, which I'm not actually even gonna get into talking about that because it's like very complicated, but it's something I'd been thinking about in a reflection of listening to someone talk about it. Because I've just been thinking a lot about like just I don't know, at this transition stage of my life, this kind of just starting to come into my out of my childhood, just like what do I want to do, who am I, what is my purpose, and what are my gifts that I'm supposed to be sharing, and really feeling like I have no idea at all. And I've really been trying to just like lean into that not knowing and be like, okay, I am not supposed to know. I have not experienced enough yet. And this time is literally for just being in the unknown and succumbing to it, and just, I guess, like life always is, but it feels like especially right now, just accepting that if as long as I keep just right now following what feels good and what I'm interested in, that I will figure it out, and like I'll come to something that feels right to me. Um, and so kind of, yeah, with that, I, coming out of thinking about the gene keys, which just talks a lot about like energies and different energies and like consciousness and whatever. I had this thought that about like, so if all energy is um, never created nor destroyed, and we agree upon that, um, then all life, but like our human bodies, my body, can can be understood as made up of infinite particles of other energies that have, you know, died died as like of a conscious being or like a
Change
plant.
form.
I mean, what is consciousness? But like a being or a plant or an animal, a human. And so then, and so if we're made up of all of those little tiny infinite bits of energy, then I must I get this like, yeah, I get this like this big kind of grand sweeping feeling that I must have a very unique purpose, that and that I can, yeah, I have a very unique purpose. Yeah. And I can produce and shift and create things in the world in a way that is in accordance with the composition of the energies in me. And that also kind of just like comforts me in the unknowing of just like, there's something in me that's built up out of everything that's in me, and I'm on a mission to find it.
Ooh, cool. I like that piece about how, okay, what did you just say? Hold on. Uh, First of all, I love that we did not just end this call.
I'm glad about
Yeah,
that.
it's good that you took those notes. Oh my gosh. Um, yes. I was listening to something kind of talking about that. You just made me think of like 4 or 5 different things. Purpose, first of all, is an interesting idea. Um, because there's the question. Hold on, I think I need to turn this down a little bit. It was kind of hissy, right? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Purpose. I do think that's an interesting thing for me to ponder. Is like, is it something that's like, no, I just told myself just then. I don't think it's like predefined. Like it's like, we're like trying to figure out what is our purpose. Um, I remember Jordan Peterson was talking about. He's like, you don't have like, or what did he say about? Oh, he was talking about meaning. He's like, life doesn't just have meaning. Like you give it meaning, and so there's
Yeah.
different kind of journaling practices or meditative practices or things that we can do to like help us get clear on what it is that we want our life to mean, or what it is that we find valuable, and things we can kind of like choose what our purpose is. But then also that gets kind of tricky because you're like, there's all these different things. How do I decide what it's going to be? um, and so with that, then I started thinking about this analogy that I heard about. Oh no, wait, before we get into that, rather than like trying to like consciously like use our thought to map out, our whole life, and like this is my role in the world, in the universe, is like this is what I have to
Mhm.
offer, and figure it out for your entire life. um More doing those things where you like tune in and just get this like feeling awareness, like when you can quiet your mind, and then in that silence you can be guided to with something with a little bit more clarity.
Mm.
um And then I thought of this analogy that I had heard of that was describing like the way that the path is like unfolds kind of in front of you as you go. They use the analogy of like if you're driving a car in the dark, how you would have your headlights on, but your headlights only see, say, like 200 meters in front of you, right? So even if you're driving like down a straight
Mm.
path and you know exactly where you're going way at the other end, you're not going to see it. You're only going to see this much at a time, but like it'll continue to unfold the whole way. And so as long as you kind of know which direction you're going and you keep moving in that direction, um, your path will like continue to show up in front of you, and then you can choose which direction you need to go. And I love that analogy. I thought that was so
Yeah, that's
cool.
beautiful.
um but yeah, such an interesting thing because there's I get overwhelmed and excited when I think about that, you know, how like
Me too.
oh jeez, because yeah, it's like we are like uh what would be the word, uh don't know, but we're made up of everything that everything else is made up of, you know, like
Mhm.
and and just this, yeah, you're like when you think about how everything is energy and so it can never be created or destroyed, and it can there could so there's only one constant amount, I guess, and it just like changes form. And then when
I
you think about how
guess.
like this
Yeah.
3D time space reality, like time only exists inside this 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 like three yeah three-dimensional existence that we experience. And then you start thinking about like past lives and things like that, but outside of time and space those are still happening. So when
Mhm.
people have like past life regressions or things like that is, and we sometimes that's just such a trip because I'm like, yeah, that might be an experience from a past life, but in terms of like not being limited to time and space, that you still exist as that life. It's ongoing. It's all ongoing. It's all happening at the same time. And you're like, what? This is such a fucking trip. So then in that sense, maybe we shouldn't worry about the future because it's happening.
It's literally already happened. It's happening because it already happened.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy.
yes. But that, oh
And it's
yes, I like that when you can actually like feel
that's what I was
that.
just about to say. It's like sometimes it's just so abstract, and then like in the moments where it's like, oh, that's so real. It's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Yeah. And when you feel it, that's, I feel like I should take some sort of action right now, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's when it's like that's when it's
Yeah.
like there's, when you feel it, then you can really believe it, you know? And I feel like in terms of like manifesting a certain outcome that you desire, like that's the time to do it because like I can actually believe it right now,
Yeah.
you know? I'm like,
Like go grab that version of reality.
yeah, like I can feel it. I know it's there. Um,
Mm.
and
Mm. Mm.
so wild. So that, oh my God, you just got me
I also
like
love that you brought up Jordan
taking it
Peterson.
back to different directions. Yeah, tell me about Jordan Peterson. What you got? What did he do for
I
you?
mean, it's so interesting. He like I had this very misinterpreted understanding of who he was. In like high school, my English teacher, I think senior year, showed us like this video of like that video of him where he's like talking about some gender thing that's like very upsetting to people. And I was just like, oh my God, like who is this like white man who knows nothing? And my old boyfriend, he was very into him. And I was like, I had no idea. I hadn't seen anything of his, but just held this like, how could you? Like, how could you call yourself a feminist and listen to him? And he's like, no, you gotta like take a for real listen. Like that's
Yeah.
not even his stuff isn't even the gender stuff really. Well, it is. It definitely is, but not like the pronoun stuff that he got famous for.
Mm.
And so yeah, I just started listening to him a lot and found just like such a rawness to him and this kind of perspective on like the state of academia and like the that felt like I really needed to hear and be like and it was kind of like a wake up call of like, oh, like you're right, identity politics is overtaking like my generation kind of and creating a very limiting academic space that doesn't allow us to have full conversations because we're like too caught up in making sure people feel comfortable.
Mm.
And that was like kind of how I really got into him. And then I've also found a lot of his religion stuff really interesting as well. And I just like him a lot. And he's so on that it makes me like him even more.
Yeah. Well, when you start actually like listening to what he has to say outside of that whole
Mhm.
like drama, he is someone who like all he wants is to inspire people to be the best versions of themselves so that they can be the best versions for themselves and for their family and for the world. And like he's a good guy and he wants good things for
Yeah.
people. And he honestly was like so tremendously helpful for me when I was going through like a really difficult time. And just like his self authoring program that he has that like helps you get clarity about
Yeah.
like which
I
direction you
really
don't
would
want
like
to
to do
go,
that.
so you can know. Yeah. um but what was I just thinking? Oh, and I was listening to, I remember he said something about I guess like the identity politics, and he had mentioned something about how when people are like attaching their entire identity to this one very small aspect of who they are, and he was explaining how like think about all the different ways that you can categorize people. We can categorize each other by like age, by ethnicity, by where we live, by your body shape, by your gender, by your style, by like your career, by your education. Like it depends on but you can split them up into a million different kinds of categories. And so when people like fixate on one and they're like, this is who I am, his main message from what, as far as I could tell, was like, no, that's not who you are. Like who you are is like much deeper,
Mhm.
and there's so many dimensions to who you are, and like figure out who that is, because all of these other like small details of your being are going to change. Like
Yeah, and they're not taking into account the what is it? The infinite nuance of the human experience.
yes,
Line
yes,
by Carlos.
yes. Thanks, Carlos. That's right. And so with that, like he's not even saying anything like, he's not even like fighting against these people. He's like fighting for these people. He's like, no, 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 like you're so much more than that. And
And
I
like,
thought that was
yeah,
really
like
cool.
doesn't want like it's like trying to yeah, because like I feel like it limits a lot of people to be and help it like perpetuates the like victim cycle and seeing yourself as
Mhm.
the victim like in society and not that like you know women aren't in many ways oppressed and have issues and especially people of color and all these different groups like not to deny those issues but to recognize them and honor the fact that they need to change and also be like okay but you still have this grand human experience and you shouldn't let
Mhm.
that define it.
That's right. That's right. Like it's,
Yeah.
what was it? I think, I don't know if it's Jim Quick's actual quote, but like it says like if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And
Mm.
that's something that like
Whoa.
I know. And so it's just, yeah, it's such an interesting thing. Like when you observe like other people like having this, I don't know, like this battle against something that just like doesn't need to be a battle, and then it just like carries on and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like if you stop fighting it, it would eventually kind of like subside and then go away. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm like a, I definitely like understand life largely through like, I guess like the law of attraction, like I believe that like you get what you put out, and like you get more of what you think about whether you want it or not. So it's like the universe doesn't differentiate between like wanted and unwanted. It's just like what are the thoughts that you're thinking. And so like if you're thinking like in strong opposition towards something, it's like I if
You're still
I'm
thinking about that thing.
you're thinking about that thing, and that's what you're being served up, more of that thing, and so it's
Yeah.
like, have you ever tried to like not be nervous? And the more that you think about how nervous you are, just like stop, stop, stop. It doesn't make you any less nervous, like um yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting. The whole thing's interesting. The whole human experience is like really interesting to me. And yeah. I love that we get to
Yeah.
like learn from our own experience, but we also get to like learn through observation from like other people's experience. So that's cool. And I don't remember. I feel like I had another Jordan Peterson thing that I wanted to mention, but I forgot what it was. So, oh well. But yeah, that's so funny that I'm I'm glad that you got to have the experience of like disliking him at first.
No, me too. It like came full circle, and it really made the appreciation even deeper. And like
Mm-hmm.
whenever I find a fellow female Jordan Peterson like fan, I feel really seen. Like it's like a
Yeah.
lot of men.
Oh,
Because
that's
and
right.
also I feel like there's like a small hate for him for directing his like work towards men, which is
Oh,
well not all of it, but like
yeah.
a lot of it has kind of like that undertone of like helping men, helping young men. When I think that's great. And I feel like there's so many things that are directed towards helping women and there's no hate on that.
Yeah.
But and it's like yeah, like young men do need help just as much as
Yeah.
anyone else and he's providing a really cool way to look at life. So, yeah.
Totally. And he doesn't ever say like, you know, women are not allowed to
Yeah, he's not just
enjoy
like they're
He's
not allowed.
like,
Like, we obviously can
yeah.
also enjoy him.
I just thought it was sweet. I remember one time I watched an interview when someone was like, having that conversation, like, why is it that you're focused on helping men? And he was like, well, shouldn't somebody like I don't know, felt look to me like they could use some guidance. Here I am to offer it. So it's like, oh, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also kind of just like that inspiring figure of like just like helping people. Like I want to help people. I don't know what I want
Mhm.
to do, but I want to help people and I want to share my voice that much, you know? Like damn.
Yeah. Have you read any of his books?
I've read or I've listened to the first few chapters of the first not his like first book, but the first
12 Rules for Life.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one. The first rule is like stand up straight.
Yeah.
I like that. And he's like, it might sound kind of like a joke, but no, I'm serious. Like
Mhm.
you stand up, you carry yourself like you're confident, and it'll just kind of the body will respond, or your emotions will respond, like based on, I guess, like the way the body's actually
Mhm.
being held. Your heart's open. Love those things. Oh, JP.
JP.
My friend calls him Canada's dad because he's just here to raise us.
That's cute.
I love it. What else do you have in your little notes? Was that it?
Mm, I have some other things that are just like honestly the conversation would have had to get there. It's just like too complex of a thought.
Oh.
And I had a thing about like the smoking or singing over smoking. I love that just like
Mm.
little visual and it was so good. It was like the quad or triple S. Um and some like voice just like things about voice blocks and honestly we did touch on a lot of that. Um yeah. I've really been enjoying this conversation though.
Yeah,
I
good.
feel I feel like just like able to be very present with you and
I,
really
me too.
engaged.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. I know I was excited when I was like listening to your first share again, and you were just like, talking about how, you're like, I feel like I have a lot to say. I was like, good, we're gonna give her a good time.
Yeah. Now, when
Yes.
you when you like DM me, because I was like, oh yeah, like I'd love to do a podcast with you, like and I was true, but then you like immediately messaged me, and I was like, oh no, she's serious.
It's happening.
Set a date. Oh God.
I know it's scary. It's totally
No,
like
but
a
this
practice.
it's very. Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you go.
I was gonna say this feels very significant to me. Voice codes in general, it feels like it's a big step in a lot of ways, and it's just like kind of just putting in my mind all the time, just being aware of what my voice feels like and how expressing feels and how my social anxiety is feeling more than I normally would be. And so yeah, just like doing this, super big deal. Super
Mm,
big deal for me.
good. Do you feel more comfortable?
I do. I do. Yeah,
Nice.
I feel very comfortable.
That's good. Oh gosh. Ah, do you get nervous for voice codes? Like even like
Oh
now?
yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Like not as much as that first time or the second time. Have we had three?
It's
I
been
guess
three.
so. I
So
feel
that
like
means
I
that there's
don't even.
three
Oh no,
more.
I do remember the most recent one. No, I definitely still get nervous. And honestly, just Zoom in general is like I get so nervous. Like in class, I was always okay participating in class throughout my life, but then participating on Zoom was because it just feels like there's everyone is looking at you. You have to unmute yourself. Like it's just like it's so weird. And I just don't it feels yeah, it's and you're like preparing like, hey, like I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna go next. Yeah, so I definitely do still get nervous, but less.
Oh man. Yeah, every time I'm like the first time I was like, I'm happy maybe they just won't. Maybe somehow she'll forget about me and like
Yeah.
won't see my face won't register on the screen and she'll be like, all right, thanks. That was nice. Or like when we're like running out of time, I'm like, oh, hopefully,
Oh
oh,
shoot. Oh
we don't have
shoot.
enough time. That's okay. I don't need to share. And then that second time when Raven was like, no, you have time. She's like, you're not getting out of this
Do
this
not make
easy.
time for you. I'll push the call back.
I know. It's like, ah. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like super scared about the singing part.
Hmm.
Um, but that's probably that like makes me feel like it's important,
Yeah.
like it is. It's one of those things that it's like it's super scary until you do it, like this was super scary and
Hmm.
now it's not super scary. But
Yeah.
like if like when you when when I saw that you had messaged me and you were like, "Hey, Lataya," and then I like hit the thing to see the rest of the message. It was like, "Are we still on for today?" I was like, "Fuck, yes, we are." But like, if you were like, "Something came up and I can't do it," I would have been like, "Oh, okay, all right."
No, I was thinking the same thing, and I always think that like with voice codes too, I was like, maybe it'll be like a Wi-Fi problem. Like, oh, like what happened today? It was like maybe she'll text me last minute and be like, oh, something happened. And just like kind of like secretly holding on to that in the back of my mind.
Yeah, but
Uh,
then but
so
then
real.
that's not actually really what we want at all.
Mm.
So I guess same with that song circle thing. It
Yeah,
happens with
gosh,
jiu-jitsu too.
totally.
I'll be like, oh, I don't really want to go to jiu-jitsu today. And then if I don't go, then I feel not great. And if I go, I feel fucking amazing every single time, guaranteed 100%. There's never, ever, ever a time where I go and I'm like, wish I didn't do that, like,
Yeah.
but that's an interesting concept actually too that I've been thinking about a lot lately is like the resistance towards things that I know that I enjoy and I
Mm.
know that I have find value in. Do you experience anything like that? Because I haven't like, I have like a certain set of things that I have decided are my interests.
Mhm.
It's not someone else has been like, hey, you like this, this, and this. I'm like, no, 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 I like these things.
Yeah.
I grew up as a child doing these things for fun and I do them for fun. And for whatever reason, like now that I'm an adult and I need to like manage my time, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make time to do this thing that I enjoy. And then for whatever reason, there's like this, like, just opposition internally that happens within me. And for what I'll like avoid the thing that I want to do. And I don't know what
Interesting.
that's about.
Very
So,
interesting.
you wise sage, you. Yeah.
I feel like I relate to that in like two separate ways.
Okay.
I feel like with things that I just like to do and that are kind of like my hobbies or like like my art and stuff like that and reading, like I really like to read, I feel that a part of me prevents me from doing those things when I have like easier things to do. And like if like getting like when I'm in a like really dopamine addicted like pattern of time when I'm just like, oh, but I could just like, I don't know, be on my phone or like watch a movie and that's easier. And like I don't, it's just like getting there to like sit down and like pick up the paintbrush instead of just like saying where I'm sitting. So I feel that in that way sometimes. And then also I would say that I feel that like with social interactions and like things like we were just talking about, but even sometimes hanging out with people, like hanging out with people, not usually like my very closest people, but people that like I'm good friends with, but it's still like a bit of an there's an effort that goes into like the socialization of it. It's not just like we can lay around doing nothing. Um, I'll find myself like making the plan when I'm in a really good social mood, and then it like comes to that night, and I'm like, I do not want to go, and and then I feel like I usually find that if I do go, I'm happy that I did, even if it's like pulling teeth in the moment.
Yeah. I've heard about like I guess like a way to get over that, or like to the thing where you like count down from 4. You know, if you
Mm,
decide like, oh, I'm gonna work out, or oh, I'm gonna paint, or oh, I'm gonna read, or I'm gonna meditate, whatever the fuck it is, you know, like as soon as you have the idea, it's like count down from 4, like 4, 3, 2, 1, and then do the thing, no
mhm.
questions asked. And I heard
I
about
like
that a long time ago, and I have not done it yet. Maybe I'll like set the
that.
intention like tomorrow morning, walk, meditate, journal. Wait,
Yes, me
in that
too.
order?
Me too.
That was the order, right? Walk,
Yeah. Or
meditate, journal.
whatever order feels good for you.
Right. Don't be rigid.
Yeah, don't be
Good.
rigid. Let it fit.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna write that down right now. That's happening, Lataya.
Yes. No, I me too. I need that as well. And I'm gonna count down from 4. If it
Accountability
do it.
partner. So I'll check in with you on Tuesday, and if you didn't do it, then
Yes.
I don't know. There's
I'm
no
so excited to
punishment.
share with the group that we had
Yeah.
this call.
Me too. Okay, but let's wrap it up there because that's 2 hours.
Yes. We have hit the
Like my bladder's gonna burst. I've been like so hydrated this whole time, and it's time.
it's time.
Walk, meditate. Oh, I wrote journey. What's that
Well,
about? Hmm.
maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you again so
Yeah,
much,
thank you
Adela.
so much.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
so good getting to talk to you. And
amazing. What a good practice. I'm so glad we both got to
yes,
just say the
great
things.
practice.
And I'm
That's
really
such a good
glad
way
that we
to
didn't end it at 1:30.
me
When
too, me too.
1:30. Okay. Awesome. I'll see you in voice codes.
See you on Tuesday. Yeah. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.